guys, welcome back to Waxing On, and today it's not Monday, it's Saturday, October 29th, and this is a special video version of Waxing On just for Halloween. So instead of Monday, we're going to run it today because I want to give you a chance to get a look at some of the videos I'm going to talk about just to get ready for October 31st. Now, what I've picked here today, and this is a kind of a different view on the same story. Back in the 1930s, can you imagine? 1931, 91 years ago this film came out. And it was the original Frankenstein, starring Boris Karloff. Now the video collection I have is actually called the Legacy Collection, 1931 to 1948. So a lot of old video here. I mean, before we had the rash of what we now call slice and dice or slasher movies for horror movies. When I grew up, there were the monster movies. Frankenstein, Dracula, The Mummy, Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Werewolf. These kind of movies were what were the horror movies of the time. We hadn't really gotten into that other style until, I'm going to say, probably the early 70s with The Exorcist, where we got looking at stories that could be based on reality, could actually happen. And again, that only made them more terrifying. But we're going back to the original monster movies. 1931, the original Frankenstein came out. Now, this collection has 8 different movies in it. Boris Karloff played Frankenstein, and I'm going to call him Frankenstein. I know it should be Frankenstein's monster, right? But everybody calls him Frankenstein, so we're just going to continue with that. Boris Karloff played the monster, or Frankenstein, for the first 3 movies. Then he kind of stepped aside and other people took over. We got 8 movies in here and 1 great comedy at the end. We start with the original Frankenstein, 1931. Bride of Frankenstein. Just give you a synopsis. Deranged scientist Dr. Pretorius forces Henry Frankenstein to help him create a female companion for the monster. We're all familiar with Bride of Frankenstein, another classic, 1935 on here. We move on to the son of Frankenstein. Hoping to clear his family name, the son of Henry Frankenstein revives the infamous monster, and more murderous mayhem ensues. Okay, this is Boris Karloff's last time, but we've introduced Bela Lugosi in here now. Ghost of Frankenstein. The mad doctor plots to transplant Igor's brain into the body of Frankenstein's monster so that together they can rule the world. And by this time, Karloff is gone. Bela Lugosi's still in the movie. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. Seeking a cure for his affliction, the Wolfman stumbles upon the lab body of Frankenstein's monster. Now, here we've added Lon Chaney Jr. to the mix. Another classic horror monster movie actor. House of Frankenstein, a deranged scientist revives the infamous Count Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, and the Wolfman. We got all 3 in here. Boris Karloff did return for this one. Lon Chaney Jr. doing the werewolf, and we do have, well, John Carradine's in here now. So I don't see Bela Lugosi in this one. House of Dracula. We've got Dracula and the Wolfman seek a cure from the respective doctor who later discovers and tries to revive the body of Frankenstein's monster. And the last one on here, again a classic, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. Now, Abbott and Costello, a classic comedy team. I mean, there was a lot of teams back in the 40s, 50s, and people sided one or the other. I mean, we had the Marx Brothers, we had the Three Stooges, we had Laurel and Hardy, we had Abbott and Costello. I mean, to me, I was an Abbott Costello fan more, so I really enjoyed this. Because back in my day as a youngster, this is in the 60s, Saturday, Sundays, they showed a lot of old movies. Saturday morning, it was an hour or 2 of the Three Stooges. Saturday afternoon, a show called Monster Movie Matinee, run out of, I believe, Watertown in New York. It was on Saturday afternoon showing monster movies or what they called melodramas. Sunday, we would have either the Bowery Boys or Abbott and Costello for an afternoon movie. Might also sneak in some roller derby back then, if you guys remember that. This was back in the original roller derby when it was a lot more of the Deep South roller derby, not the kind that was on later when professional wrestling became popular and they kind of glamorized roller derby at that point. Anyways, Abbott and Costello. Great team, Bud Abbott, Lou Costello. Funny as can be, we've got on here Meet Frankenstein. Lon Chaney Jr., Bela Lugosi are back in this one. Now, the majority of these films ran just slightly over an hour. Hour 10, hour 15. This one actually is a longer run an hour and 23 minutes, but a lot of them are very short. Now, do they look dated? Absolutely. I mean, Frankenstein's 91 years old, man. It's going to look old. We didn't have GCI. We didn't have all kinds of those special effects. Even the makeup in that was very different. What they were allowed to show was very different. Actually, part of the first Frankenstein got censored and had to be cut out of the movie. And it wasn't because of violence like you'd expect. It wasn't that gore and blood and mess like that. I'm not going to tell you what it is because you can look it up, watch the movie, see if it's in there. I've seen both versions. You're not going to really notice. But again, 91 years ago, this stuff was pretty cutting edge. Sure, the videos look old, and they're going to. But if you want to go back and revisit where some of this began, good place to start. Universal was in charge of producing these. Now, in the 60s, mid-60s, Universal got into producing a TV show, again based on Frankenstein. We had Frankenstein, we had a Wolfman character, we had a Dracula character. I'm talking about the show, The Munsters. Yes, who remembers The Munsters? Herman Munster, Lily, Grandpa, Eddie. I mean, this was a classic comedy, again, of an all-American family who just turned out to be monsters. And their black sheep of the family, Marilyn, who didn't fit in. Fred Gwynn, Herman Munster. Al Lewis, Grandpa. Now, Fred and Al had worked together on a previous sitcom before this a few years, cop comedy called Car 54, Where Are You? If any of you remember that one. Yvonne DiCarlo playing Lily. What people may not know is Yvonne DiCarlo is a Canadian, born in Vancouver, BC. And we've got Eddie Butch Patrick playing the Wolfman type character, young Eddie. And about an all-American family and the black sheep that doesn't fit in, Maryland. Again, a classic thing, lasted for 2 seasons. This is season 1. And back in those days, 38 episodes in a season. None of this 20, 22 episodes. 38 episodes for a season of the series. Now, black and white. There is an occasional, I think, color one on here. And they kind of pulled a Bewitched in here that Marilyn was actually played by 2 different actresses. One in the first 13 episodes, and the last from 14 on was a whole different Carolyn. And it was kind of like, I say Bewitched because we replaced Darren and nobody noticed, or it just continued on. We didn't even introduce a new character. We just put a new actor in and that was it. Same thing here. Okay, so 60s, we got the Munsters. In the 70s, one more crack at the Frankenstein story, a little more of a copy of the original one. Oh, I just wanted to mention, Munsters, they looked more like the actual characters in the first movie, right? Herman looking like the real Frankenstein monster, Grandpa like Bela Lugosi with Dracula. Because Universal produced it, they were able to copy the same costumes, the same look, and everything, and not have problems because Universal owned the rights to that from the original movies. Okay, let's go into the last one. Comedy. And from Mel Brooks, we've got Young Frankenstein. Gene Wilder. Marty Feldman. Peter Boyle as the monster. Madeline Kahn. Terry Garr. A lot of great actors and actresses in here. Brooks had just come off the high of Blazing Saddles and was a real hot commodity. We're retelling the story of Frankenstein with all these great characters. It was, I'm going to say mid-70s. Not a lot with this one, just a little short photo cards in there. The back of it just gives you the scene selection. But a fun movie to watch. I mean, we got the original Frankenstein that started out as a horror movie. We've got the Munsters, a lot of comedy in there. We continued the comedy with that slapstick style of Mel Brooks. Screenplay written by Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder. And again, another big movie for him Peter Boyle, excellent job as the monster. Watching him do putting on the Ritz, gonna put a smile on your face. So whether you want to go back and revisit the originals and see where these movies came from, whether you want to go back and revisit a sitcom from back in the mid-60s, a lot of episodes to enjoy, or whether you just want to go back and revisit Mel Brooks's classic, Young Frankenstein. There's a lot of options for you to get ready for Halloween. That's why we're cranking this out Saturday. You got today, you got tomorrow. Take a look online. If you're lucky enough to have hard copies, that's great. I'm not sure how many of these are available online. You might have to search them out. But if you do, you'll find it well worth it. Okay, I just wanted to thank you for stopping by. I hope everybody has a good rest of their weekend. Enjoy Halloween. We'll see you back Wednesday when we're back to our regular waxing on. Till then, everybody take care. Stay safe. Check your treats. We'll see you on Wednesday.